Okay, The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, what it all means. As we go through each stanza, I want to tell you about words that may be unfamiliar and what Poe is actually trying to say with his poem, because there's a lot of hidden meaning here. And when you get right down to it, it can be outright creepy, which I love. I think that's awesome. Okay. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary. Then down here it says it was in the bleak December. So a lot of people believe that this is New Year's Eve. He is waiting to start anew. He's had a terrible year. He's full of grief. And he needs a new start desperately. It never says New Year's Eve, but most people believe that's when this is because he's up late, it's midnight, and it's in December. Okay. So if I ask you when it happens and you tell me New Year's Eve, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because I really think that's when it is. So once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, that just means he's reading an old favorite storybook, some kind of novel. He's nodding, nearly napping. So as he's trying to stay up late, he's reclined back in his chair. He's reading and he's dozing. Okay. He's trying to keep himself awake. But here, something happens. Now, if there is a one more time, tapping on his chamber door, that's a problem because your chamber door is your bedroom door. So that must mean someone is already in his house. If someone knocks on your chamber door, they're already in your house. Okay? So it scares him out of his sleep. And then the realization, someone's in my house. This can't be good. So as his heart is just pounding, he's trying to talk himself down from being scared. It's just a visitor. That's it. It's a friend. Don't panic. You got this. And he goes just a little more into detail here. Each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. The embers of the fire, as they maybe flare and dim, it makes a wonky pattern on the floor, kind of a moving shadow. And he's telling you here that what he really wanted to do, he sought to borrow from my books, Surcease of Sorrow. That means through his books, he wanted just a minute to forget his grief over Lenore. So something has happened to Lenore. We can assume she's dead in later paragraphs. But he's miserable. He doesn't want to go on. Right here, he says, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, if the angels are talking to her, then she's in heaven, right? Okay, so Lenore's dead. He's miserable, and he's trying to forget her just for a minute to busy his mind with something else. And while he's doing this, somebody breaks into his house, or so he thinks. Okay, the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that means he's jumping at every noise he hears. The curtains are moving a little bit, and he's jumping at that. He hears something outside. He's jumping at that because now he's scared. Okay? Does that make sense? Are you with me so far? Okay. To still the beating of my heart. So he's trying to calm himself down. I stood repeating to some visitor, entreating, asking for entrance at my chamber door. It's just a late visitor that wants to talk to me, knocking at my bedroom door. This it is, and nothing more. So he's calmed himself down. My soul grew stronger. Okay. So he's got this now. He's talked himself into opening the door. And as he's walking to the door, he says, "Sir or madam, truly your forgiveness. I'm asking, I implore, please. But the fact is, you were like late knocking at my door. I was sleeping and I wasn't quite sure that I heard the knock. Was it real? Did I dream it? I don't know, but I'm sorry. He gets to the door and opens it. Darkness there and nothing more. That means there's no one at his door. He heard someone knock and he opens the door and nothing's there. So then he's like, oh, problem? So he's standing there for a while. Long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. So what he's saying is his imagination is running away with him. What could this have been? Who's in my house? What was in my house? Did I hear it? I don't know. He's got all these things going through his head. And he says the only word there spoken was the whispered word Lenore. This I whispered. So as he's standing there, maybe, oh goodness, could it be Lenore? Did she come back and say, hey? So he asks the quiet of the house, Lenore, is that you? Give me a sign. And an echo murmured back the word Lenore. That's his echo. There's nothing there. It says merely this and nothing more. So he says Lenore, and the echoes, Lenore, Lenore, Lenore. Nothing. There's no one there. So back into his bedroom, he goes, all my soul within me burning, which means he's even more scared now than he was before. Soon again, he hears a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. And the window lattice is a little bit like a shutter, the windows that open. Let me see then what thereat is. Let me go see what's at my window. And this mystery explore. Let's figure out what's going on. Gosh, let my heart be still a minute. This mystery explore. Maybe it's the wind. It's the wind. That's it. It's the wind and nothing more. So open here I flung the shutter with many a flirt and flutter. In there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he. So he didn't stop and say, hey. He didn't say, may I come in? He just walked in like he owned the place. Not a minute stopped or stayed he. But with mien, so with attitude of a lord or a lady, a wealthy society person, like they walk in like they own the place. He perched above his bedroom door. So he's sitting on top of the door frame. And Pallas is the goddess of wisdom. Okay. And in his house, it was carved into the door molding, the wood above the door and around the door. There is a bust. So it's a head and shoulders carving of Pallas, the goddess of wisdom. It's very important to remember about this goddess of wisdom thing, because since the bird, never having been to his house before, not knowing his way around, flies directly in and sits on that bust. Okay. Now our narrator is going to think that because the raven is sitting with the goddess of wisdom, the raven has something to tell him. The raven knows something. He's trying to communicate a message. Okay. You with me so far? Thumbs up. Okay. All right. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling. So now he's thinking, hey, I've got a bird. This might be kind of fun. Okay. So this is distracting him just a minute from Lenore. So then he decides to play with it just a little bit, to be silly. So he goes up to the raven and he kind of, bows to him just a little bit, and in very formal English says, though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou art sure no craven. So he's not a coward. He's brave. Ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Now the nightly shore is hell. Okay. The nightly shore would be the black abyss from which something can raise. Now, there's also a myth about a crow or a raven, and some of you might have seen the movie The Raven with Brandon Lee. The myth is that the crow, and a raven's just a little bit bigger crow, is what ushers souls down to the underworld. Southern people around here, you get the old wives' tales where, somebody says, oh, if your palms are itching, you're getting money. Your ears are burning, somebody's talking about you. Well, those same people will say if a crow perches on your rooftop, somebody's going to pass away. So he's like an escort. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. So he says, you just happen to wander out of hell and end up in my bedroom. Cool. Okay. And he says, tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Now, Pluto is also a god of the underworld. Okay, so Plutonian would be devilish or hell again. Okay. And when he asks what the raven's name is, the raven says, nevermore. So then he's like, ha, well, that's fun. He answered me when I asked him a question. He knew the appropriate time to respond. So discourse is conversation. So he's marveling, he's thinking this over, thinking, wow, that was really clear. I asked a question and he answered me, and I could understand him the way he said it. Though it's answer, little meaning, little relevancy bore. So he says, yes, he answered me, but is nevermore his name? I don't know. Let's see. And then he's kind of excited for himself here. And he is making up a scenario that has to be true. He's making something so specific that it makes him unique. He says, I bet that no living human being, I bet I'm the only one that has a bird that flew in from the window and perched on my bedroom door with a name, Nevermore. That's like saying, I bet I am the only teacher that's ever sat in this spot with the last name Dan Hart and who had eggs for breakfast. I mean, you have to make it so specific that it has to be true. So he's trying too hard here to make himself feel special. And it's obvious that he's trying too hard. But the raven, sitting lonely on the Placid, and Placid is just kind of pale and still, thus spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour, which means, if he keeps saying nevermore, maybe nevermore means something. What does it mean? If he's pouring out everything that I need to know, I've got to figure out what nevermore means. And then he says, well, never mind. Other friends have flown before. Tomorrow, the bird's not going to be here either. I'm going to be alone. And the bird says, no, nevermore. Mm-mm. So our question, friends, is, why did his friends leave him? Why is he alone? Yep, he is very weird. Any other suggestions? What if they're afraid of him? What if he's the one that did something to Lenore? Or what if they tried and tried and tried, but he has just sank so far into depression that nobody wants to be around him anymore? Okay, what if? I mean, there are all these what ifs. So we don't really know exactly why all of his friends left him. We just know that he is flat out alone. And he's going a little stir crazy so much that he's talking to a bird. Okay? Now, here it kind of startled him. Like, wait a minute. How'd you know to say that? I just said, I'm going to be lonely and you're going to leave me. And you say, no, you're not? What? Oh, I get it. So he says here, what it utters is its only stock in store, which means I get it now. That's the only word it knows. It's not really doing anything. I got my hopes up for nothing. And here he's saying maybe he came from one of my neighbors. Maybe he flew over here. And the guy that had him before was really sad and depressed all the time. Gee, who does that sound like? Our narrator. So that the only word the bird ever learned was nevermore. So that's another possibility. Maybe Pluto did not send him up to Earth for him. Maybe he just came from down the street. Who knows? But as hard as he's trying to still be sad, okay? Well, okay. Let's give it another shot. So he takes his chair and he wheels it right in front of the bird so that he can talk to it. Okay? And so he sits down in this velvet, which is very plush, very soft chair. And he sits here thinking, what does nevermore mean? Why did he come here and why is he saying this? So what does the bird mean by nevermore? And he's sitting here. He said he's engaged in guessing. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But the bird just stares at him. And it said it feels like his eyes are looking into his soul. They're burning into my core. And then he just happens to look down at the purple chair and the purple chair cover. And here we go again. He looks down. He's like, oh, the velvet violet lining with a lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press nevermore. To press something means you iron it. So he looks down. Oh, Lenore used to launder this. She used to iron it. Here we are back into depression. Okay, which, again, could be why his friends left him. We don't know. But I don't like being around people that are just, we call them Debbie Downers. Just always looking at the worst side of things, always being depressed, always like Eeyore. Okay? So then something kind of changes for him. It's like the air changed. It was thicker. Perfumed from an unseen censer. Now, a censer is a little bit hard to describe unless you've seen one. Mostly they are used in the Catholic Church, and it's a little metal. It can be in a ball shape or a triangle shape, pear shape kind of thing. But you're able to open the top and you put incense in it and light it so that the smoke comes out. It's got holes in it. And there's a chain and the priest will swing it. Has anybody seen what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? He'll swing it and walk through the church, and it's called a censer. Okay, and seraphim here is an angel. So he says, the air is denser. Like maybe there's an angel here. I can feel something. And so now he's begging the bird. Thy God hath lent thee. By these angels he hath sent thee. Respite. And respite means to give someone a break. Okay? They sent you here to give me a break from my memories of Lenore. Now, Nepenthe is a drink that helps you forget. Okay? Never had it. Don't know if it even exists anymore. It used to, so I couldn't tell you exactly what it is. Whether it's just a super strong alcohol or whether there's some kind of sedative in it, I'm not sure. But it's just supposed to make you forget. So did someone send you here to give me this drink, which is not really a drink, it's in the form of a bird, that will give me just a break from my grief? And the bird's like, nope, no break for you, sorry. So then he gets upset. Prophet, and what does a prophet do? Predict the future. Prophet said I, thing of evil. Prophet still, if bird or devil. So I don't know whether you're a real bird from my neighbor or whether you're a demon that's come up from the underworld. So whether you were actually sent to me or whether you accidentally got thrown here, yes, let all undaunted, this desert land enchanted, and that just means that everything has gone to dust for him. Okay? On this home by horror haunted, it's haunted by him and his grief. Tell me, is there balm in Gilead? Basically, what that means is there any relief in the future? Think of lip balm, chapstick. It's to soothe chapped lips. That's what your balm is for. So is there balm for me? Is there any way that I can escape this grief? And the bird says, yeah, no. Nope. So now he's getting a little more upset. Prophet, I don't care whether you're an actual bird or you're an actual devil. Tell me if within the distant Aden, and Aden would be the Old English spelling for the Garden of Eden from the Bible, will I ever hold Lenore again? Will I ever clasp, so to grab with your hand, a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore? Will I ever, ever see or touch her again? And the bird says, no, sorry. Now, where is Lenore right now? Heaven. So if he's never going to see her again, he must not be going to heaven, right? So now you have to ask yourself why. Why is he not going to heaven? Okay. So now he's upset. Be that word our sign of parting. That means, okay, now you got to go. Bird or fiend, I shrieked up starting. So he stands up and he's yelling, get back into the tempest. So go back the way you came, the night's Plutonian shore. Take that path right back down to Hades. Leave no black plume as a token. So don't even leave a feather behind that will remind me of the lie you just said, because I know I'm going to see Lenore again. Leave my loneliness unbroken. That just means don't come back. Leave me completely alone forever and ever and ever. Go away. Quit the bust above my door means to leave the bust. Go away. Take thy beak from out my heart. I love that line. Of course, the beak isn't actually embedded in his heart, but the words that the raven have said have broken his heart because he still had hope that he would see her somewhere again. So take thy beak from out my heart and take thy form from off my door. And the raven's like, no, not happening. The raven never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. So with the lights on, you can see the shadow of the raven down on the floor, and my soul from out the shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. So that is technically the ending, but it's not really a resolution. Okay? We're going to have to come up with that ourselves. But there are two main schools of thought that may help you with what you think happened. The first school is that his soul, that is, if it's underneath the shadow on the floor, his soul will never, ever raise and be happy again. He is doomed to be a downer all the time. Then you have the other school of thought, an actual soul. If it's never going to raise above the floor, then it's going straight down. No heaven. Okay? It'll go straight to Hades. So a lot of people think that he died, that the raven came to escort his soul. Then your other school of thought, the raven came to tell him, hey. But actually, if you think about it, the raven only said one word. So maybe the narrator was asking questions he already knew the answer to. Another form of punishment for yourself. Why ask if you already know the answer's no? But he does it anyway. Okay? Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about the poem? We good? Okay, for those of you at home, if you have questions, send me an email and complete the reading comprehension assignment that goes with this. And we'll talk to you later.